Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and this is the cleaned up version of the character Blink animation. I feel like it's looking fairly good, and I'm looking forward to coloring it and moving on to the next challenge. The first thing that I did this week was that I noticed that a few things about the animation bothered me, and so I added a few more frames to the rough animation. I didn't want this particular movement to end, or to begin and end so abruptly. While doing this, I tried out a little bit of what's called point-to-point, and that's basically where you flip between 3 frames of an animation and keep making a bunch of dots in the in-between that you're currently drawing on. Those points go midway between specific locations on either frame on either side of the in-between that you're working on. And what that allows you to do is basically draw out the in-between that you're working on, kind of like one of those old dot-to-dot that you'd normally see inside of a coloring book meant for children. Doing point-to-point makes it so that there's less need for onion skins, but the thing is that if you have 2 drawings that are just so close to each other, there's not really much of a point or a need to use point-to-point. I then decided to try making the shape of the head into a basic cutout animation rig. The problem is that the bone tool lacks the distortion fidelity to use the rig the way that I wanted. I could have probably messed around with the hooks in order to resolve the problem, but maybe some other time I'll focus on hooks. I need to be a bit more prepared if I'm going to make a tutorial where I'm teaching how hooks work in OpenToons. I basically separated the rig into 3 levels initially: the back of the head, which was a circle, the face, which was more of a freeform shape, and the neck, again, another kind of freeform shape. But then I eventually added a jaw once I noticed that it wasn't distorting this guy the way that I had hoped. I also used the effect schematic in order to get rid of all the strokes to the rig. This way, all those internal lines wouldn't be visible. Ultimately, after a good long while of just trying to get this rig to work, I eventually got rid of all of it. I kept having little bits and pieces of the character just morph out of place and just completely look unprofessional. It just didn't work the way I wanted. So once I scrapped the rig, I actually started to get to work. I cleaned up the first drawing really well, and then just tackled everything step by step. I just copied the vectors from the first frame and then pasted them into the next frame and sculpted them into place. Then I'd copy the vector work from the newly finished work and pasted it into the next, and then sculpted it into place and repeated and repeated and repeated. In order to have this sort of workflow, you need to make sure that you don't have very many control points, otherwise you're just making way more work for yourself than you need. I'd also suggest having as few strokes as humanly possible for your animation, because trying to get one stroke to line up with another stroke perfectly can be fairly time-consuming. I wanted to keep the solidity of the animation, so I made sure to just work with the silhouette of the character first. Then I moved on to the eye for the full duration of the animation, then the second eye for the full duration of the animation, then the eyebrow, then the other eyebrow, then the mouth, then the ear. The ear, I used a little bit of a different workflow. The ear was unique because I just made one drawing for the ear. I exposed that one frame, that one level, for the full duration of the animation, and just moved it around with the edit tool. What I did with the ear was basically just a test to see if I could get away with a shortcut, and although I think that it's somewhat forgivable for this particular animation, I don't think that I'll be using this technique too often with traditional animation, because While everything in this animation is animated on 2s, the ear is automatically animated on 1s because I use the edit tool. And there's not much customization that you can have to shape an object with the edit tool. I really do actually appreciate the effectiveness of a cutout animation rig. However, I don't feel as though the rigs in OpenToons have really kept up with the times and hasn't aged well. I feel like my cleanup workflow is best suited for a cutout animation rig, especially since I'm just sculpting a series of vector lines around the screen. But there's currently no workflow that fits with this particular workflow while working with rigs. I guess I just need to wait until I can create the bounty for the envelope distortion and such like that for when I can actually work on cutout animation rigs. That, and when I can actually figure out what the heck SnapEye is talking about, especially with macro effects in OpenToons. This animation took me quite a while to finish because I just wasted so much time on that rig. So I've actually asked this question before, but do you guys actually enjoy watching me clean up and color my animations? Regardless of what your answer is, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. If I don't get an answer to this question, I'll just ask it on Twitter. I seem to get a good number of responses on Twitter. The thing is, I like popping out quality because I feel like there's not many OpenToons animations being posted around the internet, and when it is posted on the internet, it always seems like just a super rough animation just everywhere. And I've made a point to try to pop out some quality for you guys. So there is an upside to me making these videos where I clean up and color. The upside is that my quality is pretty high. The downside is that I move from one animation challenge to the other fairly slowly. I've been at the 51 animation challenges series for months now, and I'm on something like the 4th challenge. I'm not complaining, I just want to make sure I'm making content that my viewers actually want to see. But if I'm working on something artistically, I want to make it into a video. Otherwise, no one ever gets to see it, and it's just pointless. An audience of 1 isn't very rewarding for me. So if I'm not making videos of me cleaning up an animation, then it'll never get done. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you didn't, please like, share, and subscribe anyways. Feel free to take a look at any of the videos that I've made. They're posted on the screen right now. And have a good one.